the New York City deep.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to 192 Books. We're here for the launch of Anne Waldman's Mesopotamia out from Penguin Books. And if you're just tuning in to the live stream on YouTube, I just taught a master class in how to set up an AV situation in like 5 minutes, I think. Anne Waldman is here with Haleh, Liza, Gafori. And Anne Waldman's based in New York City and is the author of over 65 volumes of poetry, poetics, and anthologies, including the Yovis trilogy, Colors and the Mechanism of Concealment, which won the Penn Center USA Award for Poetry. Her album Skyamaki was released in 2020 by Fast Speaking Music and has been described by Patti Smith as exquisitely potent, a psychic shield for our times. Waldman co-founded the Jack Kerouac School for Disembodied Poetics program and Europa University with Allen Ginsberg. A movie about her, Outrider, has been released this year by the Tomash Foundation with Martin Scorsese as executive producer. Haleh, Liza, Gafori's acclaimed translations of poetry by the 13th century sage Rumi, Gold and Water, were published by NYRB. As a performance artist, Gafori weaves translations, original texts, and musical compositions sung in Persian and English. Gafori is a 2024 MacDowell Fellow and the recipient of a 2023 New York State Council on the Arts grant. Her translations and original writings have been published by various journals and presses, including the Harvard Review, Columbia University Press, the Paris Review, the Brooklyn Rail, Lit Hub, and others. I'm going to invite Haleh up to speak a little more about the book and a little more about Anne, but I love the book, obviously. I love that you got the Penguin to print over 200 pages of poetry, which is very exciting. But midway through Mesopotamia, Anne asks, is this the longest or shortest century? She replies, look into your human detonation. From the mysterious poetic origins of Mesopotamia to our own dystopia of the 21st century, Anne Waldman crafts a singular radical investigation into the syncretic layers of quantum space and dream time. Troubadour songs, pyramid texts, Buddhist mantras, canonical hours of Judeo-Christian tradition, Persian prayers, druidic sorcery, and the wild, gnarly syntax and modal structure of Waldman's particular performative passion and wit are all conjured here. What emerges is a meditation on the salient words of Artaud's contemplation of the destruction and rubble of Europe after World War II. We are not yet born. We are not yet in the world. There is not yet a world. Things have not been made. The reason for being has not yet been found. Thank you, Anne, and I'll welcome Haleh to the stage. One more thing. We have the new book for sale, as well as Haleh's Rumi translations, and they'll stick around to sign them after the reading. Thank you.
Thanks. I'm actually going to sit because I have these notes, and in a way it's perfect because when I think of Anne Waldman, I think of, you know, the author, the activist, the teacher, the lover, the seer, and maybe above all the note taker. And if I think of Anne, if she was a Vedic goddess, she would be the goddess of note taking, and in the way that Saraswati rides a swan, she would be riding a stack of books and journals. And
I want a chariot.
okay, a chariot. Well, okay, a chariot too. And she would also have eyes all along the circumference. This Vedic goddess that is Anne Waldman would have eyes all along the circumference of her head, as Anne Waldman is looking into, you know, millennia behind, intercontinental snapshots and intermillennial snapshots that she's weaving together in montage, in this projective verse, in this experimental verse, in this verse that is coming from, she said, I have it here somewhere, and I'm not going to find it, but it was some deeper rhythm in the nervous system demanded attention. So there is that is there. All of this is there. And she says that more than novels, more complex, puzzling as experience was poetry, more like dream life, with sharp turns, surprises, dissociative jolts. And, she says at one point, to give up the embarrassing habit of searching for meaning, and that when we listen to her poetry, we're not searching for a conclusion and a beginning or an end point. We are allowing this river of snapshots and of revelations and of chants to move through us, to vibrate through us. She believes the poem vibrates and vibrates through time. And, as she brings in the Buddhist verses, she mentions in the first few pages of Mesopotamia, and Hedwana, the goddess from 2286 BC, the companion of Gilgamesh, the Buddhist verses of elder nuns, the shield flower, which was worn by people who were sacrificed in Aztec times, the mystic minstrels from Bengal, the West African prince who became a storyteller, the fertile volcanic plain in Java, the mound of dead men in Pakistan, Mohenjo-Daro, or of bones, really, in Pakistan. And all of this is coming together to kind of like project her inner curiosity and concern, deep curiosity and deep concern. She is not shy about saying, I would like to usher us into the peaceable kingdom. And you mentioned something like that in Bard Poetic about ushering us into the peaceable kingdom. Not that you would do it alone or that you have this thought that it can't even be done, but it's an inquiry, it's a desire. It's something that is pulsing inside of this poetry is love and a concern and a womb-like wisdom. That's, what is the name for that again? Yes, that. This is all in there. And, she asks, how may we be better guardians? Are we even an evolved world yet? She says, poems are small acts. Poems are small acts done, and acts that can vibrate well into the future. So Iovis, and also Mesopotamia, and also Bard Poetic, she was speaking of Iovis, her 1,000-page epic at this moment, but it does also apply here, has that potential. This specifically was Iovis. It was written for my child, so that he could see where I had been, and he could see something of the world that he would inherit. This is the Kali Yuga, remembering, according to many traditions, a dark age, and we will need some paths and trajectories through it. Problem, not solving, keeps the possibility open to actually solve. Solve is close to salve, a balm, a healing ointment, and also to save. We need a peace czarist in the cabinet. We need a worldwide Department of Peace. The will is just not there yet. The other way is still so darkly lucrative. Poets have to keep pushing against the darkness and write their way out of it as well. I think that is an earnest and wonderful desire and intention that pulses inside of her work. And Mesopotamia, we've got the cradle in there, Mesopotamia, and we've got topia, meaning place, and we are between places. And also topia brings to mind utopia, dystopia, technotopia, ecotopia. Which one are we headed to? And maybe it's not one, right? Because the meso is the middle, and she speaks about the rhizome, right? Not the tree that is growing from roots to sky, but the rhizome that is this horizontal tubular structure growing underground. And we are always in the middle between two places, maybe between waking life and dream life, maybe between the cradle and the question mark of where we're headed, maybe between utopia and dystopia. We are always in the middle, present in the middle, and these possibilities shoot off the rhizome. It sends off shoots, right? And so where are we in this meso? Where are we on this rhizome, and what indeed are we projecting? And these are the questions she asks us and calls us and beseeches us to turn to and study, and also the centrality of studying. She's so curious, and she invites us also to live this way. When you read Mesopotamia, I found myself I had my phone nearby. I was doing some Google searches because I didn't know everything that she was making references to. But, her curiosity is contagious, and her way of seeing the world is contagious. And she calls us not just to the poem, not just to the present, not just to a compassionate existence where she says, must do no harm, but also to, a way to live as curious, alive, and potent entities that believe that we do have some kind of purpose on this earth, and that something important projects out of all of us. So I appreciate you so much.
I appreciate you so much.
Anne.
I'm intimidated.
That's insane to be intimidated. I'm 1,000 times more intimidated by you. But anyway, let's go. So let's all say hello and thank you to Anne Waldman.
Nice to see so many people. Thank you. Is this sounding? Okay, good. Thank you. I had just a couple of little grounding notes, maybe more for myself, but I just want to say it's been a great sort of labor of love and energy, and I was so graced to start with Paul Slovak at Penguin, who was supporting a lot of work for many years, and he was leaving after COVID. He felt, I can work from home and I could retire and whatever. But then my younger editors were so good, and I did get over the limit. Usually I was told under 125 or something. I said, and I cut it back 100 pages. So there's part 2 maybe. But it came, I just wanted to say, I was trying out the title, and I said to Ann Carson, what do you think, Mesopotamia? And she said, it sounds like my kitchen sink. So it brought me down to, I was all, in the clouds and all these different civilizations and agonizing about the cradle to the grave and all that. And, the fact that we came back at so much war in that place. And I remembered I was in Beirut, I think in the 60s, where the 4-day war, 5-day, 6-day war was going on. Just, with hints of things to come, and then there was the Aswan Dam. So a lot of these experiences in my own life, as I see as these real, rhizomic points of contact and interest, kind of have woven into this. And I felt I could just go all out at this age, just try and see if I could put this together in a syncretic way. And I love syncretism. I just got back from a trip to Mexico where I was going to maybe you've been to the Basilica, the Guadalupe Basilica, and just you feel, green taras there, and the Nahuatl women, and the women, the Oaxacan women, and Chiapas, just the elderly women of this kind of long tradition of a certain kind of healing energy, curandera energy, which has of course the Guadalupe, the official Christian, and very honored in various ways, but there are also all kinds of other rites that go on with Guadalupe. And just thinking again about these syncretic relationships, which has excited me so much. And also just, what's the quote, probably Pound, in the time of the poet, what is it? All times are contemporaneous. In the mind of the poet, all times are contemporaneous. So living in this hell that we're in now, it helps me just to go to other hells occasionally. I mean, people say, what was it like back in the 60s, and what was this like, and was it as bad, was it worse? I'm trying to write about that now. I mean, we were in a golden age, but we also had the Vietnam War, and we had incredible other stuff going on, and unresolved, white supremacy. So the civil rights in Vietnam were amazingly intense for some of you who were there, and we were founding the Poetry Project, and then later Naropa, and just trying to, work with these things as they continued karmically, this endless war. And then I went to some seer who said, I said, well, what do I write about now? She said, I think you just have to keep writing about war. And I said, what? And then I'm writing books like this. These are great kind of poems for friends who have passed, people I've loved, and they're, it's very much elegiac. And that seems to be another thing that's just coming out at this time. So anyway, glad to share this with you. And thinking again about some of these things, my friend Zoe here uses the phrase Sources Unlimited, and does a radio show on FM, very wonderful show, middle of the night usually. And then the sense of that, as I said, all times contemporaneous, and the idea of syncretic again, so things can build. And this is this great John Ashbery. I mean, I feel like when I saw this poem just came together, because it's a little mechanical doll, wind-up doll, and it's called Cut-Up Doll or something, wind-up doll, and she's in the Tower of Babel, throwing out her little airplane into the vast unknown abyss. So when I in doubt, I thought, I'm just that little mechanical doll trying to make sense of it all. And yeah, so I'll just jump in a little to the intro and then go around a little bit. And I love this little joke on the word hermeneutics. So I just started using it. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but it's hermenuisance. So it's the one laugh in the book for me. At this point.
Oh, antimatter's revenge.
What?
Antimatter's revenge, I thought was in
Oh, that's, yeah.
That was pretty funny.
Yeah. Antimatter's revenge. Okay, I'll
Okay.
remember that.
Maybe
I'm going to
we'll
write
read
down
that.
all
It's
my
in
funny
there.
things. So this is the intro, bit of the intro. This world age was supposed to have been candles and canticles and invention and amulets and intervention and romance and wit and civilization and mantras of nonsense and bright destiny and the epic plan become essential desire, voice, vow. And through ages, ritual to sink your heart into, to raise you from endurance. And time, your troubled time, was supposed to be your elevation, your apotheosis, all the forms of poetry making, and your feet dance in the tread and the thread and history of spirit, and threads of open systems, and working to make it through many hours of night, memorizing, placing the word, the loon, the loom, the song and humming of the bird, once more back into your heart human. Your strophes and twists and turnings, human, asleep on the wing, all the merry mancies, geomancy, and what is the origin of this suffix, and what is your origin in the bright, naked day, dark of the night? An existence, the continuum from how it begins, antsy, the animal, no clue but war. A Marxist Berber, St. Augustine, confessing his passion in astrology before conversion, I hope to attack and refute and make a laughingstock of the demented people who make a living by astrology. Oh, Lordy. Dawn song and lover leaving to meditate down 2nd Avenue in an old scriptorium, and doing this becomes ritual and a prophecy to stave off death. And the library you are making are the documents of sacred time, our fear and paranoia allowed in the documents of your sacred time in the free university library. Documents to live by, hide by, blueprints for how to become all the genders, how to become all the lovers, how to be care and empathy in the sacred library of genders and lovers to what you least expected, nowhere to hide now. Here's your card, here's your golden card for the golden library of words, for the armory show of words and books and the reckoning. Here's the inventory, read up A Race Against Time, because we are in the speed zones now and I'm just coasting down Avenue A. all the staves, uplifted scaffold in verses in the construction of a tower, working Herculean to build and come down again and build again. Come down from your perch is over. Come down, it is quaking, all stones and tones of origin, cruising. But there is nothing in the multi-universe or in space, this realm of what is and is not, making consciousness, quaking in consciousness, making rounds of consciousness. We continue the cyclitic, armed for beauty and love, new countenance, coup d'etat. The Syriac round dance of martyrs and other prophets, witches, warriors is choreographed before you were born. May being aroused dance of poetry and prophets and witches and warriors and voyants and valence find release. Remnants of prophecy speak in tongues polarity, its archaic forms. Who understands possession? A voice orchestrated with organs slung in the body. Tell me more of Genesis, my ribs, my sins. Tell me Tibetan Marpa, the translator, the traveler, Milarepa, the poet, skin turns green, eating nettles in a cave. Enkidu, a mere kiddo. Hermeneusence, the newest guide, jumps in time, old time religion. Scholar Enheduanna, shining through all the rage of a dark age, born 2286 BC. Thriving in the Mesopotamian renaissance of acumen, poetry, weapons rising out of Ishtar's shoulders, Terigata of mendicant poet nuns everywhere in a black corridor, or Aztec tale of the bound girl struggled to mark herself with black and white substances in the ancient way, waiting in line, stood and screamed, "Why do you not sacrifice me?" Later, the bards would report tears down her face as flames rose up around shield flower. I go to where my God lives. My people's descendants will all become great warriors. You will see. India, bowels still dancing the streets, Gassir, castanets, you will see. Maya, illusion, always a dance. 9 shaman songs of woes, men, Eurasian steppes. I knew to shift Arabic, Uyghur, and now also is dirge. Archival, what we love most, lives inside vaults and waves ripe for evanescence, a particular destruction device locked in the toolbox, or antimatter's revenge. Start over, you will see. It would be the hermit and the dove again. Arise. It would be disavow the nuclear option under rigid scrutiny. The sects and pacts of great interspecies sadly now broken, ebbing. Plutonian pits. Rise again, but let's try abandonment of stagecraft. Let's do it. Let's do it. Hey, let's try. It was to have been a compendium to perform with you in your ear, in your chariot, a nearby vehicle. You would not succeed in these forms. Option, scrutiny, performance of chariots, way past that, an obsolete vehicle, all spokes gone. It was supposed to have been trumpeted from the earliest times, names, scale of tribes, discoveries of first touch, bone instruments, rattles of teeth, the runes on maps to find a psyche's way back. And as he defined the entheogen, I know how you had been there before, in the mud, in the long string of the little creatures helping a child grow. Apotheosis, shape-shifting Kundry, licking her toad. Been there, the toad said. The legend said there were allies in advance toward ecofeminism. It would rise to structure, maybe by joining hands and singing in a circle round, vast in temple ceremony and pomp, in a claustrophobic cavern, back to original texts and urns. Nahuatl annals speak of Ilancuetl, elder woman skirt, who allowed the wandering Aztecs to settle in her small town. Not the best idea, but it would verify, clarify, mystify the strangers who did not know their code, their mores. This is a parable of old forms. The desires of song chant in obedience to the forms of spirit. What are they, obsolete or advanced? They were supposed to help guide us, guide me to not be the dactyls and spondies of war cry, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, not be the blood on the shield, but liberation through an act of runes and stunning ruins. Facing your own mirror, lament the master plan, smash it, a generative zone heard the same wistful rift. Break now, and it takes years to master the art of memory. It was supposed to have been bundles of sticks gathered one at a time, or when you might need fire. It was supposed to have been antediluvian energies, pyramid funerary texts howling as the pharaoh's eyes and mouths are cut open to breathe, or subterraneans studying old litmus tests of empire, ligaments, fur, warmer clothes, graffiti, testo junkies and sleep shifters, learning the craft. It has to have been a litany. Who sang it? For the cradle and birth of civilization, a more minor key, a chorus of saints and newborns, and studying the Bhakti saints. Sumerian, Ugaritic, Hittite person who wanted and worshipped origins at the end time, no middle way. Pre-Christian anthologies of struggle and alliance trying to make the case. How would you ever know? What was it? Piling up inside, learning to be an emotion, studying to be an open system singer, living on borrowed time and claustrophobic, echoing hells, for this book is around. Why is hell to pay? How far we've come. This book is a round of systems. No new Stave 1, no new transmissions continued, but we gathered together because closer to the end of the world, or new horoscope of world, everyone thinks life will end in our lifetime. We are the last. We are the last. A lucky auspice, a new session, how to become invisible under surveillance. We studied a tricky throne meditation, including machinery and crystalline messengers who hop into gear to translate and mimic weather. And then everybody thinks you are a high honchu. They can do that. Smoke and mirrors, concerned with cinematics of planets in distress, a prison break, gilded hallucination, or cosmic chords of healing, more practical stuff. The Bat Temple taught us better, learning to live close with others, hanging upside down in the astral omens, already shooting by a century ago. You must be kind, study stoically acts of divination, hoping answers come, but you have to be vehicle ready. And others have their purpose, and you have to go back to the moon landing all over again, and the technique you learned in the terminal down on Wall Street. I have little quotes from Flowchart, Ashbery's poem, just at the bottom of the 7 stave pages. Sad grows the river god as he oars past us. And then I'll just read a little bit of this opening, telepathy cross wounded galaxies. That's a phrase from Burroughs. Cross wounded galaxies. From Ajanta, the child misplaced her mask. We named her Have Been Studying. She became a monk, a whole life's ears into it, here identifying as Moonface. Studying the streets, you said, I, poet, was an orations, all my own, a hermetic-sounding person. So here's an inventory, Mannahatta and Mountain, seeking one another, paths cross in the dream, and continental divide, its crack up, the thrust and transit of neutrinos, District Federale, Covarrubias Street, San Juan, Marrakesh, London's upper light Raj shades, and Java's Kedu Plain and root matrix Mohenjo-Daro, and Varanasi, all the Ghats and Calcutta's Cineas, and here misplaced the brunt of language in the crusty city towards spinal sound, and more lists as she travels, ubiquitous, in a kind of trance. So will always be a crossroad, they said, in sacrifice to poetry's path of naming us, tangles of language, always to the wrong place, often as we name ourselves after poems and peoples, back a turn of centuries, a scree of origins displaced, as if in a system of runnels for the next war no one can understand. But when I knew what to say, we had occasion, being in the same activist cell, a troop of us, all concerned about Generation Z, and defining as we speak, we kept on. We might only know in song that occasion, the earth runs dry, stealing away recognition, known only prisons. You'd like to be telepathic in all the caves you travel, all the world's languages. I have a lot on my mind as well. I'm going to skip into this. There's an end here I like. Let's see. And my telepathy was going on across all the galaxies, between the devices and the echoes of the devices. And after each death, one heard a poem of the fallen. And when they passed, there was a wave, a crash, a clean sting of pain, acts of intellection, or it was some magic pause, is that the word? Or was it illusion, as he said? And we all agreed, sexy wares in the rocks holding up a very large bureau of time. What they are studying, the deceptions of rulers, continuing records of impasse. Open all the drawers, the library is your new brain. I tell you, I first heard the Song of Woe as it was scribed in a book in a prophetic voice, which said there is no pause in samsara. And one of my teachers has said it is all recorded, all the mirror images, like an inventory photo. You have seen what you have seen, and it is loaded into you, who are a composite of forces enforced by what you are looking at. Did you see me stoned by little rocks in Cairo, small boy urchins? Did you see me hounded on the subway, beaten up on Avenue C, and messed up 3 times? No one to whom a start of war is not natural, but a vocalization you can join in as you fall. Just studying. The boy who was clearly inspired contacted me, Ubu Ann, because I led the groups to Tirtaganga and misplaced the ashes of the poet claiming India, intellectus adeptus for the death cults, and I, teacher, was kind of like the actor who took her little cart around villages, what we followed to see the shadow puppets of Wayan Kulit when we wanted the way into psychic reflection. Where is she now, my muse? She was Italian, an actor, a scholar, Serafina. I come back to her obsessively in perennial transit. Made with the holy skin of an animal, the puppets speak in the disembodied voice of myths. They keep the whole psyche going below fear. Puppet animals skinned for this ritual way back. No worry, back then, no fear. In Java, I studied my own biomes, and fear retreated at the full moon eclipse. And the deities were back in their boxes, and it was quiet, and this mood helped evolve our pleasure. Serafina was rehearsing her lines behind the screen. We all called her home, having witnessed Commedia dell'arte from a land far away, our great telepathy. Her mind follows as trances a poet enacts. I loved her because she had been with me during lifetimes, during the homecoming, during the cremations, during the conflagrations with all the worlds of art and memory stronger, and their miraculous song. The rudiments ruins of sounds from instruments of iron, and lay my body down in the neutral charnel ground, curing the ceremony like we were in a crime scene, and asked to testify, heartbeat to the phrasing of this incremental forensic sound. All the demons of hell out to catch, to tempt, to shriek, to bang on iron, to turn again as if in fitful leap when the wind left us. And we trudged home tired, but joyous to our little compounds, for we had seen the world open wide, ironic and wild. Why and how and when and where we held not veiled destruction, but our implements were wool and metal to weave and shape again. And we made beautiful soft sounds at dawn too, to make the world again, and our mind to snake and dance again, singing syncopated, with the pace of the hooves treading, threading, my child asleep astride a donkey through the sleeping villages. And then there's a little leap through the various matins, lauds, prime, terce, sext, and none. And I wanted to just quote from the little Vespers bit in here. And I thought of being down at Trinity Church during the various protests down there and Occupy and all that. But Vespers, at the lighting of the lamps about 6 p.m., outside the protests, the park, voices, arrests, collapsing the tents, the violence, extinguish the lamps. They say Vespers take us through creation and sin, our traumatic expulsion from the garden. Like the Vespers are at night. Such a beautiful word. And then we can stop and chat again. I just wanted, there's a little section. I also want to say this is dedicated to my dear friend Mamie. So that sense is poets, but there's some little pictures from Kiki Smith a show that was really, for me, about a kind of sorcery, the times of the chthonic, looking at oak trees and patterns out of oak trees. And so I did a 9 hours of meditating on these different things. And then I was giving an assignment where I said, you also have to include some movie actors to my students to just make them wake up a little. Of course, I didn't know any of these people they were honoring. But anyway, there's a section of the last one. Open your book of runes, 9th hour. Remember living in epic, sunlit, sybaritic goat. Write poetry wanting every cause and died before dawn. Snitched a road trip memoir, turned down waiting to get with traffic. When did you and why did you start making films back in the, was it 40s? Harry Smith. Because an old woman with a bull roarer had a snake drawn on it and I heard it. Joe Brainerd. Giddy with him on the meadow, too impatient and can't stand in the way of new birth, now slip, kiss and frustration back to a cage, a restless desk, a cult of artistry, breathe over my skin, my body, sweet under skin, Vermont, and remembered you bolted, ragged statue like slithery snake, sorcerer mounts you from behind your head, mouths utterance, remember the sorcerer cuts the allowance of your scheme, your complicated heart or oracle. You smoke a cigarette. What else could we orate from a thinning tree, an extinction catastrophe limit, horizon of disappearance, how to prepare for more struggle, agitprop in the stratosphere. Busy all night below borders with words, witching with the other fellaheen, caustic tribals, more troubadours to come, mouthing tales of hope and strategy for the 21st century, saw signs of protest, how the enemy was measuring this destruction or just secretarial savage duty. Oak trees, oak trees, oak trees, stunning, a humming shift, however, a kind of compassion. And the progressive senators came out of the woods to close the child detention center. Inside, children were crying, some were dying. And you want to pause for a moment and just say more? Well, I'll read a couple more. How's time? How are we doing? A little more. Okay, this is a shorter piece, apse, which, so apse is architectural kind of an exedra, a semicircular recess. And I quote from Lear, come to great confusion, then comes the time, who lives to see it, that going shall be used with feet. This prophecy Merlin shall make, for I live before his time. So, starting to think of living before Merlin's time and what that prophecy might be. And then there's, things invoke the Neolithic, Cybele, Egyptian goddess, and there's, Ordovician mass extinctions. We weren't even there yet. And there was a lot of sea life activity. These large nautilus creatures that were, I guess, versions of cephalopods. I don't know all the science, but I've been very interested in cephalopods. They seem to be able to live in startling ways. I won't sit with anybody eating them, but that's a new vow. Not that I ever ate them myself, but anyway, they're magic. So they were showing up around then. And then I had mentioned a Palladian galaxy in the sense of Pleiades, the Seven Sisters, and I think it's blue. Again, there's a sort of theme of blue stars in this section, blue lights from the outer world. And apse, as dust, as empire, I, phenomenology, I, masochist, I, for my country, called the meeting in lace, in lack of love. I, for my country, people talk to me, oh, talk to me. I, for country, a recital, self-emanating Tara, Parping, what to do with this? A powerful grid of translucent consciousness, rippling off paranormal worlds. I, memory of the ISIS cult of Cybele, come out of the dark age. Hieratic, the icons in their hoods, the gaze of the condemned. Keep libraries open for books of the dead, our candles, our bundles, our mortal afflictions, goslings to prophecy, one tithing, struggling voice. Speculation on the measuring rod, asleep, plotting a concord, a cannon. Point to a place of plea, a pure voice, oh, high and clear, I, crescent moon, empty Zocalo, I, a Palladian galaxy. Vision statement out of the vault, I, etc., how to assemble in the new Cassandra project. I, particles of android in meager reciprocity, late Ordovician mass extinctions, 45 million years, gasping for air, switching codes, I. When she told me, begin to sing, inside the body shape of a stretched thread, a blue flame shadow, image of mirage imprinted on memory, dressed in garments of epic summer, we decided on our theme song, Living Thread. Taut strings, spinal cords in rhythm for the next assembly, 2025, year of the wooden snake, and I, in sanctuary, approved this message. Yeah, when I can't end a poem, I just say, I approve this message. I usually say, my name is Ann Waldman, and I approve this message. That's getting a little old. Poem for Lynn Haginian. Yeah, we've lost so many incredible poets, people of my time and community. Alice Notley, of course. Cole, some of you know from Bard, and so on. I won't go listing. Pierre Charisse, there's a memorial coming up. We joke about the church, St. Mark's Church. It's, you have to get in line for your memorial. So when Anselm Berrigan was running it, she said, I become the funeral director here at St. Mark's. But so grateful for that. I mean, it's part of what poets do and a way to continue the work of the poetry. So this is for Lynn. Which softened the near, for Lynn Haginian. When she died, I was seated in nostalgia, music of ambiguity, but not hammered. We are fitfully purposed woe. We are her advocates, and ample side, continuous in a ring of hearts, broken in parts for her Russian skill. You not loved me, she said best, her poem, subject intellectus, the shake of face, an adjective down, and the woman are held in skias, a mode of deference and sideline, but rising. I could not listen and think murder and passion too close of music. Gesualdo, she has a great poem called Gesualdo, and she, brave poet, to take him on. Tasso wrote somewhere, the settings and repair could do, too, fix it, poet, the unnoticed composed of fraction, but her observation, all instruments call evening, the tree, love, knowing, to song, free and well-tempered rebirth, all the sentences we have for favored forever in her heart. I melted this tune for her, nocturnal, a when and why, merciful as I didn't have touching you, my turn, but hers, fierce and honest and torqued. You have no eyes for Tarkovsky, his tragedy, she laughs. Ha, I secretly did, a victim of such beauty, poet, chambers of a time. Orders of life crossing, Madonna del Parto's belly is testament. Bear the thrust of swords, a prayer. The arrow poet sits on thunder. Reductio, our times. What required burst of that slow film, harmonies of seizure, immolation, stutter, inventive backtalk in mind, will say, modern Lynn knows, she does, the illness, the want of beauties we live and knew through her perception. Lynn knows cinematic episode, reedy harmonies of living what is familiar in an epigram. And I saw the nostalgia of my time and went to my faith, the characters with heat and in water, family and memory, adrenaline dreams, courtyard cleaning and gleaning the detritus, our whirlwind, a force field in spirit of possibility, a small candle to save mankind. And I heard her first this way in the gorgeous ruins, saving Kuklamenos another turn. Gesualdo was the charm, unbroken, epistles a tide, thistles the madrigals like pain, a tide no one talking to talk a genius, and you shall not have loved, written in vain, ever so fitfully inspired. Kuklamenos means the cycle or wheel, the flower stalk circles upon itself. For Lynn. And there are references in there to the Tarkovsky film, probably some of you know, Nostalgia, the match, the candle. And she was pretty fluent in Russian and traveled there and translated some. Do you want to read with me the Cecil? Some Cecil. She liked this poem. So we'll maybe go with that. We can do it together.
Okay.
This is a pyramid text for Cecil Taylor. And it was composed when he died, and we were doing events at the Whitney Museum. Maybe some of you were there, and I was just listening to him a lot. And then finally, I got Penguin to make a little kind of, it's not really a pyramid, but the sense of a kind of little bit of a mausoleum. And I felt, knowing him a lot of years, and my mother was a fan, and I think took me to maybe my first Cecil Taylor concert. And he came out to Naropa, and he also wrote, as some of you know, so wanting to honor him in this way. And I saw him has this kind of deities. So there's various things invoked in here. We'll just do a little bit. And various Egyptian deities to help, guide the spirit. I also invoke the Oneric, I don't know how to pronounce it, Oneric, dream mancer, the guy, the escort in the dream. Escorts, these escorts come and help you in your dreams. So there was something to do with, in some of these poems, with that kind of thing, where some of these people who are being evoked are, show up somewhere in a dream. You start.
Okay. Pyramid text, gravitational acousmatic for Cecil Taylor. Two dynastic sounds whose origin one
just keep going
cannot see. Dragon and her kin, invisible talons attack.
Acousmatic.
Acousmatic. Acousmatic. Keys, keyed up, devotional licks, makes fiends of us or votaries in the astonishments. No sight gag, but sweats acoustic ravish. Rage more than rage doth ploy. It turns gentle and palm.
Tree roots through granite.
Saqqara's utterances.
Etruscan soothsaying.
Persian sorcery.
And moonlight decides the ride.
Druid.
And all priests of Vodun.
In the continuum.
No death rattle.
But prize.
Dig this turf.
No sacrilege.
But wider-eyed Egypt.
With Taragit and Bess and Aha.
Building it up. The
building it up.
On the walls,
building it up.
Arise,
building it up. Through the crystal coffin. Do this too in you. Your fire web. Ground down the matrix. Mount
I am come
Meru
to the boat
in your midst.
of the evening.
Tantra's
I am come
golden thread.
to the boat
Tantra's
of the evening.
golden thread.
Went down to
Tantra's
my lover
golden
jazz
thread.
woman. Went
Tumulus.
down to my man.
Pyramids
went
again.
down to the children and all the beings identifying themselves. Species of sound through a water
Curious.
of hieroglyphs. I went down to the boat of the evening.
Curious. Gravitational lower limit. I am come to the boat of the evening. Went down to my lover, jazz woman. Went down to my man. Went down to the children and all the beings identifying themselves.
Liberties, the night jar with the humming jars and the butter lamps.
Species of sound through a water of hieroglyphs.
Nemesis in the Pharaoh worlds.
I went down to the boat of the evening,
Imbibes ascent,
eyed up,
keys hit
wide
like
up,
doors of perception,
recalcitrant
doors
to
within
bluing,
doors, open one
swim,
by one.
swim the
treasure
invisible,
of the
barely
trembling
audible,
dream.
low-throated
At what foot of the
sub-vocal
mysterious
straits,
master,
Celtic, Hebrew,
player,
Arab, Swahili,
whose three
and
queens stand
he
guard,
a Cree,
Web-Jebten, Neath,
and went off.
I put
He, Cree,
Selah,
he,
Cecile,
Creel, he,
Cecile,
cured,
see
he,
subtle,
creeing again,
say
he,
see
he,
cecillary,
creeing again,
cecil,
and he
see
cry like a
cessation,
creature of light,
serenity,
explaining, but
sublimity.
rode to,
Ah,
but he rode on what was missing.
who's
Cecil
magic.
rode all out himself.
So, any questions? Or well, I can just sit here all night. Let me just find a short one. A short one. Let's see. I was going to read the Isaiah, and you shall be broken in pieces. It's for the elderly, but I'm going to pass on that tonight. But you have to hear the beginning. It shall come that day in passing, the strange, unexpected, never told like this, with arrows, with bows are passing, and it shall come hither, briars and thorns, and you will be there a blunt axe aiming. Associate yourselves, but a weakened people, and ye shall be broken in pieces, and give ear, and this is right out of Isaiah, and give ear, all ye of your ear of yourselves, blunt people, a blunt axe aiming, and ear gone out like an eye. Guard yourselves, elders of all countries, with your weak tones. They never perceive you prophets. They percolate your mind to taunt, to steal your words. Guard yourself, your orb broken in pieces, stumble and fall, and be taken remnant of heartier land now wanted. Who broke you, my beloved elders? I try to protect myself with that. But when people come at me, I'm an elder. Get away. Or you shall be broken in pieces. It's so much fun. This is the real launch of the book tonight, so I'm just indulging a little bit. Sorry. And then there are 365 lines. I'm not going to read those in 1 year. Yeah, I'll just close with confessions. Yes, there's a whole series of confessions, not like St. Augustine's, but I'll read the one of Dear Future Poets. Tissues and letters obviate, explode, don't swallow their words. Dialectic moon and hideout, don't vanish, but keep calm, keep civil, keep head on, moon or Mars. Who is the queerest wheel? Keep hard plow, fill out new frontiers. Can we extract from all dimensions for poetry's pride? I have pride, forgive me. Again, please praise me. And then repeat after me and praise yourself. We are the guard, Jack Kerouac, from Anne, who confesses her pride. It's one of the worst. I have a thing on the deadly sins. I think it's the worst, pride. But. Okay. And is there anything else you want to say?
Okay. Should we, what do you want
One
to do?
last thing,
Read
maybe.
something or ask you a question? Or
Ask a question.
Ask a question. Okay. I don't think of you as someone, obviously, who deals with much structure. I feel the wild mind, inquisitive mind, going. But you say in the first piece you read, this book is a round of systems. And you also have 7 staves, which are like the scaffolding holding something up.
Right.
So there's a structure. And then later you say, speaking of systems, to know a system, listen to the music instead. Holy Gimbri, Oud, Rababa, Rababa, Qanun. And these are, of course, all, the Gimbri is the Moroccan bass, which was my favorite instrument. So it was funny that you called it a holy Gimbri. Listen to the Gimbri and Gnawan trance music, as Sandy, you know well. It's one of the greatest sounds on the planet. But anyway, talk to us about system staves and this idea of listening to the music of systems.
Well, going back to some of these older from these different places, like, going to the Bible or whatever, going to the different texts of the whatever the current religions are, going into witchcraft and wizardry and trees and so on, witchcraft and then seeing the system within, whether it's a natural system of the oak wood and the history through that and the druids and so on, whether it's the compline and feeling like that's something I can relate with in terms of the hours or the station of the cross, these kind of little Harvard outlines of how to organize your meditations. And then the interlocking sense of piling it on, and as I mentioned, this love for the syncretic as a kind of system. The syncretic is what kind of keeps us going, and a way that we can make it work. I mean, when you conquer, you sort of conquer, and then you can do it in a gentle way, absorb, what's come before, and you have this sense of these piling on. And I mean, that's how things have functioned to a certain extent. But we're so out of alignment, I don't even know what to suggest. I feel like we've gone past history, actually. We've been things have been so really atrocity after atrocity. Can there be, these conversations? And I've always said you have to, as long as you're still have an imagination. And then this idea of what's the next leap, beyond our serotonin, some kind of leap that maybe has to happen in this, we're all chemistry and all these things. We're this composites of stuff that'll just go poof, it's dust. So while we're here, and there's Ginsberg's line, while we're here, we'll do the work. And what's the work? To ease the pain of living, everything else drunken dumb shows. So that idea of the drunken dumb show or the ghost or the imposter or the images that look like they're creating a linear narrative of the human, whatever. And then you look at these world systems being, and reading a little bit about the current cosmology ideas and so on. There's a lot of method in there, method of how things click and work, and the way it's described is what's hard to access unless you're sort of studying. So just trying to get the cosmic, what's above as below. These, I mean, maybe they're not literally systems. And, I'm still an advisor for Giorno poetry systems. So we're always, thinking of ways, and we were so political, and we were so involved with radio and electronic stuff and recordings and the vocal and going into public space. And I also borrow from, the sense of a sacred temple or sacred place. For example, in Bali, there's the inner temple, the middle area, which is kind of when you could bring things out, like Mahayana Buddhism. You have Hinayana in the beginning, where you're sort of taking care of yourself. Then you have Mahayana, and then you have the secret, more tantric, which is in the inner temple. So how you get those three together in one life or time or mind, and so, what's systematic about that? So for me, it's the, sort of working out, coming into public space. And so you come out of the three, this triad, and these different, when I've done retreats and under these auspices of mainly Buddhist auspices, where you live very Hinayana. You live the way you eat, the way you so on, you don't eat meat, and then Mahayana, and you don't talk. You're more alone. And then in Mahayana, you're working with other people. And then by Vajrayana, it's like a wild feast all the time, gnawing on meat bones and drinking, I don't know what. What do people drink? Whiskey? I don't know. Mezcal. That's the new drink. Everything's made with mezcal, all the cocktails, so that's a margarita mezcal, and we have a mezcal Negroni, Frank O'Hara's favorite drink, which was, 3 different liquors, but mostly more Italian. So this Negroni mezcal. Anyway, all that stuff. So, and in a very young age, I was very involved with performance and so on, and I also, poetry, I wanted to bring it out in public space. So now in my mind, I have this little, these 3 temples and moving out in a kind of trajectory, and then you step outside, and in a Balinese temple situation, you have what's called the Chandi Bentar, which is open at the top. So you're inviting the energy to come in. It's not a closed gate. And you're invoking a different kind of energy. And you're also, if you're in a Balinese kind of mask or costume situation. You're standing there at the gate. You can watch the actor or the performer there for like a half hour, just waiting. Can I go out of the gate? It's like, come out of the gate, come out to the public space. So you're waiting and waiting, and all this trembling and fear and wide eyes, and where do I go from here? And then you just come out, and it's like this, a system for me, a system that it's like Francis Yates, some kind of room, of memory, a memory system. So I don't know, I'm just finding it's hard not to have some of these things to live right now. And I'm so drawn to these past they've been corrupted, they've been this, or they're gone, or they're reinvented. I mean, going back to some of the Bardo texts, of course, it was Evans Wentz who manufactured a whole thing. He didn't even know Tibetan particularly, or Sanskrit, but sort of put together these different pages and constructed of what we know as the Tibetan Book of the Dead, but it's not really the original or whatever that might be. So, what is that? How we use things that are actually can be useful. But thinking about, language, text, often you have to hear, in a ritual, you have to hear it first before you read it and study it. You hear it and it imprints. There's so many people in the room who know much more about this than I do. My friend who's lived in China for a lot of years translates. But you live with the orality, and you sort of start to learn it. You might even learn the language that you don't understand, semantically and all that. And then you get to study the text. But to get the permission to study the text, you have to hear it, so it imprints on your body. Mm-hmm. And then there's something in Thai poetics called Tibot, T-I-B-O-T, where it means, learning through hearing. You have to hear it first. And so then you study, and then you kind of make it your own, and you need guidance along the way. You don't want to fuck up and be doing black magic by mistake, and destroying more of the world. So anyway. And you know a lot about this stuff, being a translator of Rumi, incredible translator and performer of Rumi's music.
Well, certainly they had the practice of sama, deep listening, and of course they didn't have printing presses at that time, so the task was to sit down and listen to a book read aloud.
Right.
So it was not just because they didn't have the ease of printing, but also because they believed deeply in the practice of deep listening as a meditation, a way to quiet the chatter and immerse yourself in another music. And they would get a certificate, ejazat sama, after they finished listening to a specific book.
But did they memorize? Did they have to memorize some of it?
I mean, memorization is still a big part of the way that Iranians absorb poetry. I mean, you can find children who recite Hafez. I mean, it's not that uncommon for people to mm-hmm. memorize poems, and I'm sure back then it was very common because they were relying on the oral tradition in order to keep these mm-hmm. things going and get them heard by more people, obviously. So, yeah, it was a big part of it. Yeah. Origins.
Yeah,
you mentioned origins. Yeah, and origins. Okay, so let me just find this little quote here. And also I wanted to ask you about antithesis, reality, and something about mirrors, but origins. First poem, you said, did it call the sky? Did it quake with the naming of origins? And what is your origin in the bright, naked day, dark of the night? That's from a different part. And then you say, tell me more of my genesis, my ribs, my sins. And you say, come, all stones and tones of origin. I mean, this word comes up a lot. Mm-hmm. So what is this?
Well, just curiosity. I don't know. I think a lot of us feel that way. You just want to know more. You just want to know. It helps you enjoy and feel like there's been some intelligence mm-hmm. and consciousness before right now. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of impulse to, and then you find, I just get, etymological dictionaries. That's the first thing students have to get, and then you just leads you into all kinds of paths. One word can take you all over the cosmos and real life and streets and places and naming and so on and grave sites. So that sort of curiosity of actual place. And then because I was so lucky to have traveled pretty young and wanting to, just really I got to the pyramids. I couldn't believe it. I wasn't even 21, and I rode a camel. It's like, really? And then they were building the Aswan Dam, and I was talking to people from Russia. It was just so surreal, in Egypt, building a dam and moving huge, Abu Simbel, incredibly ancient temple along the river Nile, and for the Aswan Dam, which was evidently failed in some way. I don't know. Somebody must know the history. But so I'm so appreciative that it was my mother who had lived in Greece who said, you just have to, I'll help you, get over there as a young person. And that's never kind of left. But I haven't always found the way to work with it. And to be so upfront about, people do this page or stage. Are you a reader or a writer? And I said, I write. How many books do I have to write to show? I have 60 books that are heavy. They're very heavy. My 1,000-page, I don't know, maybe it's here somewhere. It's like, this is a great doorstopper. The Yovis trilogy, it took, 10 years to write it. Coleridge says, do your study, and then you have 10 years to write it. So it's like 20 years. And it was just all over the map. And then, whatever. And then I just can't control my desire to be on stage and vocalize. So just found a way to. It's okay now. Finally, it's taken all these years. Yeah, so
Antithesis reality, also the mirror. Robert Creeley has that poem where I think of this poem because in one of the passages you say facing ourselves in the mirror, and you're talking about war in that moment, and I thought of this poem. Where is it? Let's see.
Robert Duncan has the title "Before the War." It's not like written before the war. It means standing before the war.
Right.
He's in front of the war. So
right, that
kind
idea
of thing,
facing.
Facing. Yeah, definitely.
Well, here it is.
Yeah,
He says, okay, wait, the second page. I'm sorry. Oh, there it is. Okay, well, I'll just read one part of it. He said, it's called The Mirror, and he says, seeing is believing. Whatever was thought or said, these persistent, inexorable deaths make faith as such absent, our humanness a question, a disgust for what we are. Whatever the hope, here it is lost. Because we coveted our difference, here is the cost.
Wow.
And I think when you were dealing with the same issues. He was speaking about the slaughter in Rwanda in this moment. You have a poem where you're speaking of the current genocide in here, and when you're telling us to face ourselves in the mirror, what are we seeing there? I mean, he's seeing a disgust, but I feel like you're bringing in so many other.
Right.
I mean, we're
well, I
seeing
see
so
we have this incredible consciousness, this curiosity, all this stuff we want to know about, and et cetera. And also things that are still vivid in the contemporaneity of it all. And then we have, we're complicit in where our taxes go and all that. And we're complicit with what's going on now. And I'm just waiting, will we have everything erased? Somebody who can erase the whole, the various 2 impeachments or whatever. The history books change, taking people's portraits and life stories out of the records. And, who's got the real records? You have to wonder with all the surveillance and inventory taking. Where are the secret, treasures? Are they with the Mormons? Underground, 20 feet underground. Trungpa Rinpoche used to, the Tibetan, strange Lama, complicated Lama. He talked about having, in Canada, a huge archive library of all the sacred wisdom texts of the world. I'd love to say, put out a call. Okay, everybody, let's get on your camels and let's get all the sacred wisdom texts of the world up to Canada. Anyway.
And I think you also, when you face the mirror and when you ask us to face the mirror, you're also asking us to see that Chenrezig, how do you say it again? Chenrezig character, or that aspect of us too. Can you talk about
Well, Chenrezig is incredible compassion, just always weeping, and the name means actually calling the one who, we're calling up, and he's responding, or he, she, very but calling on Chenrezig, and he's hearing us. So it's hearing the lament of the earth up to Chenrezig or Avalokiteshvara, and then Avalokiteshvara coming in with all these thousands of arms and thousands of hearts and heads to do the best they can to help.
And they're
the Christ.
sweeping. Too.
They're sweeping. Well, there's the whole idea of sweeping it's a very Zen thing, just endlessly sweeping the shrine room. You
Right,
have to
but
keep doing it
and
again.
you told once the story of them sweeping the suffering away, and then they turn around.
Oh yeah,
and then
you
the
turn
suffering-
around, it's back.
Right,
That's
it's back,
Chenrezig.
and
It's back. Yeah,
right.
and then you do it again.
And you do it again. And
Yeah.
you do it again. So it's like kind of a Sisyphean sort of
Yes.
task in a way, but you still do it, and you do it, and you do it, and you do it.
Helps to have a good broom.
It helps have a good
Yeah,
room.
really.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think we have to
Yeah.
stop.
Okay, we have to stop, and you should all buy the book.
Oh, well, very happy to see you all.